नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. um, we have been discussing for the last few weeks on this theme of duties expected of a qualified practitioner of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. I will just, the last week we have been seeing some proofs for the essence that Srila Rupa Goswami has presented. So he said, a Vaidhi Sadhaka is at fault for failing to perform the essential angas of Bhakti. He is not at fault for failing to perform the duties of Varna and Ashrama. And if he commits a forbidden activity, he need not perform the Karmakandiya Prayaschitta. For such a person, Bhakti alone acts as his atonement. So this is where we, this is the essence of what we have been seeing for the last few weeks. And then we saw many verses, proofs, which proved many of these points. I'm not going to go over them again because we have already recapped it. So today we are going to directly start the last verse which he has quoted. We had not seen the purport of this, so we will just see the purport of this particular verse as given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So very powerful purport, but as I mentioned before, the purport should be understood with the understanding that when he talks about you can say like varnashrama duties, he is not talking about duties themselves, right? He is talking about the paradigm of functioning. That is the most important thing that we need to understand. Otherwise, we will get the whole thing wrong. We may get some misunderstanding. He's talking about the paradigm of thinking and functioning, which is anukulyasya sankalpo and pratikulyasya varjanam. So he is basically telling, give up thinking in terms of dharma and adharma and start thinking in terms of what is anukul for bhakti and what is pratikul for bhakti. That is the recommendation. So whenever he says, talks about varnashram duties, we should understand that he is talking about the paradigm of functioning rather than the activities themselves, right? That is something I wanted to just touch upon before we are going to see the, before we see the commentary to this verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So very famous verse, the Charama Shloka of Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So he says sarvadharman parityajya. So this indicates the second aspect. One is not at fault for not performing one's varnashram duties or not functioning on the paradigm of varnashrama. So that is the meaning of sarvadharman parityajya. And mam ekam sharanam vraja, just surrender unto me. This indicates you should surrender to Krishna through the limbs of devotional service. So mam ekam sharanam vraja indicates wherever surrender to Krishna comes, one should understand it indicates practice of pure devotional service. Okay. Aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshishyami. I will deliver you from all sins indicates there is no need to perform any karmakandiya prayaschitta. Just mere practice of bhakti in itself will take care of everything. Ma shuchaha. Please do not worry. This is what the verse says. So now let's let's see the purport of this verse. So now the one verse previous to this, um, mm, one verse previous to this is Manmanabhava Madbhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru, that verse, right? So now the question that arises after Arjuna hears this question, hears this verse, always think of me, become my devotee, and Madhyaji, perform your sacrifices unto me, and things like that. Arjuna gets this question according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that am I supposed to perform the meditation and other processes along with my Varnashrama duties or without them? You are talking about Manmana, Bhavamadbhakto, Madhyajimam Namaskuru. I am willing to do all that. Along with that, should I also perform my Varnashram duties? Am I expected to perform my Varnashram duties also along with meditating on Krishna, becoming Krishna's devotee, and so on? So, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this Sarvadharman Parityajya is a verse that Krishna speaks in response to this question. Is one in trying to surrender to Krishna, in trying to is one expected to perform in performance Varnashram duties? Is that mandatory or not? Is it supposed to be performed along with one's surrender to Krishna, or thinking of Krishna, becoming a devotee of Krishna? So in response to that, Krishna says, giving up all duties of Varna Ashrama, Sarvadharman Parityajya, surrender only to me. This is Krishna's response, right? So now, someone may say, one should not say that Parityajya means sanyasya, to adopt the sannyas order, because Arjuna was a Kshatriya who was not qualified for sannyas. So sannyas ashram is only for Brahmanas. Kshatriyas can, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas can only go up to Vanaprastha ashram, but sannyas ashram is not for them. And for Shudras, they go only till Grihastha ashram, right? This is according to the traditional Varnashram system. So someone may say Sarvadharman Parityajya means he is not asking Arjuna. Someone may say this is the Purva Paksha argument. So the Purva Paksha argument is that someone may say, oh, here when Krishna says Sarvadharman Parityajya, he is just asking one to give up one's Varna duty. He is just asking Arjuna to take up to sannyas. So sannyas is also an ashram which is within the Varnashrama system. So he is not asking him to give up Varnashrama duties. One may say like that. So in that case, that cannot be the case, because Arjuna, being a Kshatriya, is not qualified to take up to sannyas. Because he is not a Brahmana by birth or by activities, right? By guna or karma, he is not a Brahmana, he is a Kshatriya. So such kind of, so if you say that Sarvadharman Parityajya means he is recommending Arjuna to take up to sannyas, no, that cannot be true, right? Then as well, he says, it should not be said that the Lord used Arjuna just to instruct all other people who are not Kshatriyas to take sannyas. For Arjuna was qualified to be the recipient of the Lord's instructions, which could not be taught to others. So one should not say, no. Through Arjuna, the Lord was instructing all the Brahmanas to take up to sannyas. Well, that seems like not a very prudent argument, because why would Krishna towards the end of Bhagavad Gita speak about a principle which is applicable only to one very small class of people as the Charama Shloka, as the concluding verse of Bhagavad Gita, why would he speak that verse uh, which is applicable only to the Brahmanas? There are Kshatriyas, there are Vaishyas, there are Shudras, there are Antyajas who may not fall within the category of the 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. So why would Krishna give such a and through Arjuna, who is a Kshatriya, why would he give up, or why would he give instructions to Brahmanas? And moreover, Arjuna himself is qualified to receive direct instruction from Krishna. So therefore, this cannot be really true. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti's argument. Okay. Now, the Purva Paksha argument number 2. Someone may say, nor should one explain that the meaning of Parityajya in this verse means merely give up the results of all activities. So someone may say, oh, Sarvadharman Parityajya means Karma Phala Tyag. So he's not asking him to give up his dharma, Varnashrama dharma. Actually, Krishna is asking Arjuna to perform his dharma and give up the fruits of that dharma to Krishna. Someone may say like this. This is the second Purva Paksha argument. So in response to this, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, well, then how would you explain these verses? So he quotes verses from Bhagavatam. Devarshi bhutaptananam pitranam nakinkaro nayam rinicha rajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartum. We saw the meaning of these verses before, right? So one who has surrendered to Krishna is not, he does not have an official obligation, any official obligation to fulfill with respect to the devatas, rishis, other living entities. Everything is fulfilled by worshipping Krishna. Yata taror moola nishechanena tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashaka. Just by watering the root of a tree, all the branches and twigs and leaves and flowers and fruits, they all get nourishment, right? And then again another verse he quotes from the 11th canto, Martyo yada tyakta samasta karma. So the word tyakta samasta karma is used here, where it actually talks about giving up one's varnashram duties, right? And he again quotes tavat karmani kurvita. This verse also we saw elaborately many times, right? Till when one is expected to practice karma. Till when one is expected to practice karma? This verse says, tavat karmani kurvita. One has to continue to practice his varnashram duties as long as na nirvidyeta yavata. He does not develop detachment from this world, which is the qualification of jnana yoga, or matkata shravanadava shraddha yavanna jayate. He develops faith in hearing my pastimes, chanting the holy names and all that. So this faith is the qualification for Bhakti Yoga. So as long as he has not developed faith in Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, he should continue to practice karma. Which means once one becomes qualified for Bhakti, he is not really expected to practice his karma. And another verse, this also we saw before. Dharman santyajya yassarvan mam bhajet satasattama. Krishna says in this 11th canto verse. Dharman santyajya here refers to sarva dharman parityajya. And mam bhajet indicates mamekam sharanam vraja. So these are the various verses that he quotes to indicate that Sarvadharman Parityajya does not refer to just giving up the fruits of one's karma, but giving up that karma itself, in the sense giving up that paradigm of action. You are no longer choosing to perform an activity in the based on the consideration of whether this is dharma or adharma. The only consideration is it pleasing Krishna? Is it pleasing Guru? or not. So it may be any activity for that matter, right? But when that is performed with this consideration, then it is considered bhakti. That's what here Krishna says. So the meaning of the word, which word? Parityajya. Okay. The meaning of the word parityajya should thus be explained using all these statements of the Lord with no contradiction. So you should, if you say it, parityajya means karma phala tyaga, or if you say parityajya means to take sannyas, then it contradicts all these statements of Bhagavatam. So therefore, it cannot be contradicting. So therefore, parityajya means actually to give up those, give up functioning on that paradigm of varnashrama and start functioning on the paradigm of bhakti. The meaning can indeed be understood correctly by the prefix pari. Pari means completely. So the Sanskrit prefix pari is similar to the English prefix peri, as in perimeter, right? Perimeter means from all sides, right? Perimeter of a circle, like that. So perimeter means from all sides. So sarvadharman parityajya means the giving up of the dharma has to be complete, which means you cannot think that, oh, this dharma I can give up, but this dharma na, how can I give up? I cannot give it up, right? Just in the name of bhakti, I cannot give it up. One cannot think like that, right? That's what is being mentioned here, right? Surrender only to me, mam ekam sharanam vraja, right? This means that there should be no worship of devatas, there should be no ashtanga yoga, there should be no jnana, there should be no dharma or other elements in that surrender. You should not be dependent on anything else. We cannot be dependent on the devatas. We cannot be dependent on Ashtanga Yoga. We cannot be dependent on Jnana or Dharma or any other elements in that surrender. It should be purely towards Krishna only. Then he says, and by following my orders, you should not fear some loss on your part in giving up Nitya and Naimitika karmas. So now, what are these Nitya and Naimitika karmas? Some of you may already know. So Nitya karma means something which is done daily, like 3 times Sandhya, worship of the Sandhya, the Sandhya rites. These are done every day. So if one takes up to bhakti, one may not necessarily do it. So one, and Naimitika karma means periodic activities. Okay, so this is like Shraddha ceremony. Okay, so, and he says, by following my orders, you should not fear some loss on your part in giving up Nitya and Naimitika karmas. This is what Krishna says, right? The order to perform these Nitya karmas was given by me in the form of the Vedas. So then someone may say, Hare, now the Lord himself is telling no need to perform this Nitya Naimitika karmas, which means are those Shastras which recommend performance of Nitya and Naimitika karmas, are they bogus? Are they not part of Vedas which are given by Krishna himself? Right? We thought that the Vedas in total, where they came from the breathing of Krishna. So, so are they not part of the Vedas? They are very much part of Vedas, right? They are definitely written by Krishna only. As Krishna says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam Gunakarma Vibhagashah. I have only created this Varnashram system, Krishna says. Very much. So the order to perform this Nitya Naimitika karmas is coming directly from Krishna for people who have karmanishta, right? For people who have qualification for karma, he is giving this instruction. Now Krishna says, now I am ordering you to give them all up completely. So this is the order to Arjuna now. I am ordering you. This you refers to one who has qualification for bhakti. Okay. So for him, he is giving this order. Now you give up. This is my order for you. Just like the spiritual master may say, or even from you go to a career counselor, the career counselor may tell one person, well, I think you should take commerce, and he may tell another person, you would do well taking engineering, and to another person he may say, well, I think you'll be a very good doctor, I think you should pursue it. Now the question is, he has given 3 different instructions. When he found people with 3 different capabilities and inclinations, right? So similarly, Krishna also, when he gives instructions for people in Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture, the Vedas give instructions in terms of adhikar or qualification. So therefore, yes, Krishna only gave the instruction to perform Varnashrama, and now Krishna only is giving instruction to Arjuna, understanding that he has reached the qualification for bhakti, sarvadharman parityaja, give it up, right? So there is no contradiction here, because the instruction is for 2 different people. It's not for the same person. Now someone may ask, is there sin in not performing your nitya karmas? Will I get some sinful reaction? Now you see here, no, rather the opposite. In performing nitya karmas, you will commit sin because of disobeying my direct order. Now, what does this mean? In performing nitya karmas means, despite Krishna telling, well, for a devotee, this is not needed. You just focus on performing your devotional duties, or you start performing everything which is anukul for bhakti. You don't have to worry about whether it being dharma or adharma. So if someone says, no, how can I give up acting on the platform of dharma and adharma? I cannot give it up. If one thinks like that, then that is sinful, in the sense that is actually directly disobeying the order of Krishna, which he has given to you according to your adhikar. This is what Rupa Goswami calls as niyamagraha. Niyamagraha means, one of the understanding of niyamagraha is this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives this explanation of niyamagraha, where he says, even though one may have gone to a higher qualification, but still he is stubbornly attached to the duties of a lower qualification. He is not willing to give up those duties for lower qualification. He is stubbornly attached to performing it. So this actually is a kind of niyamagraha. So Krishna here says, is there sin in not performing your nitya karmas? Krishna says, no. Rather the opposite. In performing nitya karmas, you will commit sin because of disobeying my direct order. I am giving you direct order to give it up, and you say, no, I will not give it up. Then that is sinful. Then Arjuna may argue, okay, then starting from today, if I surrender to you, I should then do whatever you say, whether it is good or bad, right? That's what is the meaning of surrender. So if I surrender to you, and if you make me perform dharma, no problem. I have no worries. But if you engage me in adharma, since you are the Supreme Lord and you can do whatever you want, but if I perform adharma, what will happen to me? I surrender to you, and if you tell me if you ask me to perform adharma, and if I perform adharma, will I not be penalized for performing that adharma? Krishna says, I will free you from all sinful reactions, from whatever reactions exist from the far past and recent past, and from whatever reactions arise from acts I will make you perform in the future. I will free you from all sinful reactions. This is not possible. This is not impossible for me to do, though it cannot be done by anyone else to whom you surrender. You surrender to the demigods cannot say, Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami. That the demigods cannot do. They cannot say that. But I can say, because I am sarva karana karanam. I am the controller of everyone, everything, including karma. So he says, taking you as the means, I am giving instructions to the whole world. Do not feel grief for your own welfare or that of others. Don't think that don't think that by giving this instruction to you, I am creating troubles for you. I am trying to remove all your troubles. So don't worry about it. So he says, may you and all other people giving up all dharmas, your own and everyone else's, absorbing your thoughts and actions in me, surrendering to me, remain in contentment. Give up your dharma, give up other people's dharma also. Here, of course, dharma refers to what is mentioned in the Dharma Shastras as one's duties according to one's varna and ashrama. So don't perform your dharma, or don't think in terms of dharma adharma, rather start thinking in terms of what will please me and what will displease me. I myself have accepted the burden of freeing you from sin and freeing you from samsara. I have accepted the burden of freeing you. Why you are bothering about your sins? That does not mean that you try to live a life dedicated to sin, thinking that Krishna will take care. Then that will be the seventh offense to the holy name. Namno baladyasya hi papa buddhi. Krishna is not recommending that you recklessly commit all kinds of sinful activities and surrender to me. That is not surrender actually. So he says, Ananyas Chintayanto mam yejana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemahamyaham. But I carry the burden of supply and maintenance of those who desire constant association with me and who, thinking only of me, worship only me. So if they have taken, if a devotee who is desiring constant association with Krishna at the stage of perfection is worshipping him, surrendering unto him, Krishna says, I want to carry the burden of his supply and maintenance. Right? Why Krishna wants to carry the burden of supply and maintenance? Because for an ordinary person, his piety provides for his supply and maintenance. Right? And piety comes from performing one's varnashram duties properly. So why here Krishna says, I will take care of your supply and maintenance? Piety itself will take care, right? But here the devotee on the order of Krishna has cut himself from all sources of piety, normal piety, which is his varnashram duties. So Krishna says, don't worry, you are no longer dependent on piety. I will take care of your supply and maintenance. This is what Krishna says. So he says, do not lament thinking, oh, I have thrown my own burden on my master. So you may think, oh, why should I throw my own burden of supply and maintenance to my master? Have I come here to take service from Krishna? Well, let piety only do it. I will not put that burden on Krishna. So Krishna says, don't worry, it is no strain at all for me, who am most affectionate to my devotee. Nothing else remains to be instructed. So this is Krishna says, okay, nothing else remains to be instructed. Thus, the scripture has been concluded. He said, in this verse only, in Sarvadharman Parityajya, the scripture has been concluded. So this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says. Srila Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, only one slide we will just see. He says the word pari should be understood to mean that the rejection, tyaga, should be complete, right? Which means we should give up the consideration of dharma and adharma, and that rejection should be complete. That is the meaning of pari, fully. And sarva papebhyah, I will free you from all sins. So Jiva Goswami gives a different insight here. He says it means I will free you from all impediments to bhakti. Why isn't it I will sarva papebhyo? Why should it not mean I will free you from all sins? He says there is no sin for them because those with faith in bhakti give up the duties of dharma by the order of the Lord. So they give up the duties of dharma by the order of the Lord. So if they give up the duties of dharma on the order of the Lord, why would the Lord penalize them with sins? He says that is not sinful. Like that. So this is the elaborate explanation of this last verse that Srila Rupa Goswami quotes in this section on duties expected of a qualified practitioner of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, which is Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. And we saw the elaborate understanding of this verse as given primarily by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and very nicely complemented by Srila Jiva Goswami. So before we move on to another very important theme, if there are any quick comments or discussion points based on what we have discussed, you can please share or ask. Anything anyone would like to share? Yes, Srivas Thakur Prabhu, you wanted to ask something?
Prabhuji, when you're talking of surrender, definitely we all have our past conditioning of so many lifetimes. From a practical angle or from every angle, what to do so that we can expedite our surrender, Or, can you answer, Prabhuji?
What can we do to expedite our surrender? Well, one way is to associate with the quickest way is to associate with those people who have see, actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur says surrender is the external manifestation of one's internal cultivation of love and affection for Krishna. So the external manifestation of internal love is surrender. So how to surrender more? If we love Krishna more, we will naturally surrender more. So how to love Krishna more? By associating with those people who love Krishna very much, with very exalted devotees. The more we associate with such people, the more quickly we can surrender. So surrender means what? Surrender, because in material world, we have a very not so pleasant understanding of surrender. Surrender, actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur simplifies it for us. He says surrender means love. The kind of surrender that we have for our father and mother, that is the kind of surrender. That is not surrender out of guilt or surrender out of fear. That is surrender out of love. So that kind of surrender we are expected to have towards Krishna, and that happens when we associate with those people who have that kind of love for Krishna, and in their association that love rubs off in us, and we also are inspired to surrender that way.
This, like you mentioned, surrender means out of love you do some activity, but sometimes the condition state that love thing may not be. Sometimes we have to, force ourselves against the love may not be. I'm like,
well, that is true. Love may not be there, but the point is at least we have some trust. See, love is not black and white. love has different shades. Love starts with some level of trust and faith. So it starts with that thing and it matures into love. But the trust or faith is also a very
Integral part
faint.
of the surrender.
Yeah, it's a kind of love only. So if we have faith that Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, Krishna is my well-wisher. So it can start with that faith, even though we may be struggling with our conditioning. But if we have that little faith that Krishna is my well-wisher, then maybe we will take some effort in actually uh, uh, acting in a way that is pleasing to Krishna. Like that.
Fine, fine. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Sorry, but Nitya and Naitya, like regular and clear.
Mataji, can you come close to the mic and speak?
Little, just what you said, na, ki dharma and adharma, and we don't have to go as per dharma. Na? We just have to please, like whatever pleases Krishna, do that. Whatever does not pleases Krishna, don't do that. I 100% agree that sometimes we do want to please our parents. Like I'll speak very clearly. My mother-in-law, she loves one thing, and she has told from day one of marriage that you do this. Like that one thing is, you every day morning you pray to Surya Dev. Do like jal offer karne ka and unko pratna karne ka. So I never felt that is wrong. I pray to Surya Dev, but I pray for Bhakti. I don't pray for any material objects. So this may be just coming in, technically it may come in just a dharma. But then if we see from a spiritual point of view, because she's chanting 16 now, she's so favorable to devotional service. I'm just doing it to please a Vaishnava.
Yeah, that is perfect, Mataji. I mean, you can definitely do that. There are two aspects to it. First thing is you can worship Surya Dev because he is a devotee of Krishna, and you can you can ask him, and you are doing it not because you are attached to doing it, but you are actually doing it to please another Vaishnava. That is fine. And if you see Surya Dev as a Vaishnava and offer your prayers to him seeking Krishna Bhakti, that is perfectly fine. Or even if you may see it as a dharmic activity, which as a devotee you should not be performing, the point is that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ashraddaya hutam dattam tapastaptam kritam chayat asaditi uchyate partha nachatat pretya noiha. In the last verse of 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that any activity that you do without faith, ashraddaya hutam dattam, whether it may be a sacrifice or charity or austerity, whatever you may perform, if you don't have faith in it, it is as good as not performing that activity, because it will not give any result in this life or next life. This is what Krishna says. So even though externally it may look like a pious activity, but if you have faith only in Shravanam Kirtanam, you don't think, oh, if I don't worship Surya Dev, then there will be some obstacles in my devotional service. You may not have that kind of faith. Your mother-in-law may have that kind of faith, but you may not have that kind of faith. So if without that faith you perform that activity, then there is no problem. So that we should do actually for particular social considerations, so that you don't unnecessarily agitate other family members or society. We may have to do certain activities, but we should not think that if we don't perform that activity, I will regress in my devotional life. If one thinks like that, then that is contaminated faith. So if without contaminated faith, just for fulfilling certain social obligations, so that other people does not get agitated, if we do it, that's not a problem. That is not forbidden by the Vaishnava Acharyas.
This will come also in the category of Bhakti, Prabhuji?
Yeah, correct. I mean, secondarily, you can say. Secondarily, it will at least protect the bhakti, or it can create a situation for that relative to gain some agyata sukriti.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So same thing happens to, like, same thing like the concept ki jo husband ke liye the wives have to do nirjal upvas once in a year, and there are so many other rituals. She tells me, you just do it. Like, you may be a Krishna bhakta, but just do it. So when I do it, I just add Krishna, like, Krishna, whatever I'm doing. If you're pleased, give this little benefit to like our dear Pati Dev, whatever. So
that's okay, Mataji.
Even I don't want to even waste a moment of life in just doing dharmic activities. So this will be okay, na? Matlab, if we put Krishna
as long as you don't think that, oh, if I don't do this, there will be some obstacle in my spiritual life or my husband's spiritual life. So like that, we should not think. But yes, okay, this Vaishnavi has asked me to do, or my mother-in-law, okay, for her pleasure, I will do it. But I have full faith in the practice of bhakti. With that, one can perform. That's not a problem. Okay. Shamli Mataji, you had?
Yes, Prabhuji, yeah, very good.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, I think it's a little ulta of what Leela Manjari is asking. If there are, there are devotees we see who don't want to take up, social obligations. Maybe we've discussed this before also, Prabhuji, but because of that, uh, those who don't want to perform social obligations because they think it will affect, it is not needed, or the bhakti will be affected, the progress in bhakti will be affected. And because of that thinking, and because of the conflicts that they have with their family members, and um, there is disruption in society that is caused, and because of that, small common sense decisions are not taken, and we see upsets in within ISKCON over the years. We see devotees who have been affected, who have been, there have been problems, or people are affected and their bhakti is also affected.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is true. Yeah, complete your question, Mataji.
So what is it that went wrong, and how do we avoid that?
Well, we can, there could be many things which went wrong. One thing is probably, a mature guidance may not have been there, and probably they were overly scared of contaminating their own faith. So, and probably they actually identified with the activity too much rather than the intent, the mood of performing that activity. So therefore, they let the pendulum swing too much on the other side, and because too many people swung the pendulum too hard on one side, so as a natural reaction, in today's day and age, the pendulum is swinging to the other side very heavily. That we have people, discussing that, varnashram duties can never be given up by devotees, or we are not so qualified to not perform varnashram, or we devotees have to read and follow Manu Samhita very scrutinizingly. Many different types of thoughts and ideas are being presented. This is probably a reaction to the pendulum, which was very immaturely swung to one side, and naturally the pendulum comes back and it swings to the other side. But both extremes are not the right understanding. We have to ask what the right understanding directly from Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada. So that's my thought on this question. Is that relevant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Radhakant Prabhu, did you have a question or something? You are unmuted. Okay. Vishwas Dubey Prabhu, you can. Vishwas Prabhu, you can please go ahead, Prabhu. You had raised your hands. Did you want to ask something? Anyone?
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. This is Manjari Priya Devidasi.
Okay, Mataji. Yes, Mataji,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Actually, Prabhuji, I would say that it's more than a question, it's a guilt, Prabhuji. That actually we are elder in our family, and there are some, karmic, these karma kandi rituals which are to be followed very, intensely. And actually we don't do this because we are not staying with our in-laws. And my father-in-law, actually, he's a very staunch follower of all these karma kandi activities. Okay. And since it is carried out by our, rest of the members, but we don't do it. So I have the guilt, Prabhuji, that, since these are the rituals which every family, say, I'll just give an example of, Prabhuji, there's now that Ganesh Chaturthi is going to come. So we have a Dasha Mata something ritual in which, the situation of your family, a financial situation, and this physical situation. I mean, it is being taken care by this Dasha Mata. It's like this. And Prabhuji, we don't do it because, since we are into bhakti, it's not like that we are, we are opposing that. But since we don't do it, so Prabhuji, I have that guilt in my mind. That's, since we don't take Krishna consciousness, I mean, that chanting is not to the point. I mean, distractions hota hai chanting में भी बहुत सारी activities ऐसी होती है जो we are not able to do it, तो जिसमें ऐसा बोला गया कि भाई आप you live जो भी आपके है ये सब आप छोड़ दीजिए और कृष्णा के ऊपर, पर प्रभु जी वो कृष्णा के ऊपर जो छोड़ने की बात है, प्रभु जी वो कैसे आएगा वो, क्योंकि जब chanting भी एक वो उतने लेवल पे होना चाहिए, हम चारों नियमों का पालन है वो भी उतना ही इंटेंसली सीरियसली हमको करना चाहिए. तो प्रभु जी हम तो कहीं के भी नहीं है ना, तो हम कर्मकांडी में कर रहे हैं कुछ और नहीं, मतलब अगर मैं अपना एग्जांपल दूं तो chanting में भी it sometimes बहुत अच्छे rounds होते हैं, sometimes there's a struggle in chanting and like this. So प्रभु जी, how to just come out of it? I'm very much disturbed with this.
Yeah, I mean, so first thing is there is one thing is there are two things. One is purity of faith and another is called as strength of faith.
Okay.
So abhi one of the arguments that people give is आपका भक्ति इतना बेहतर है क्या कि आप ये सब चीज को छोड़ सकते हैं.
Exactly, प्रभुजी.
So मैं बोलूंगा नहीं है, आपने सही, you have pointed out very correctly. My bhakti is very weak, my faith is very weak, it's very but if I do what you say, then along with being weak it will become impure also. Is that what you want me to do?
Okay.
So now if my chanting is not good enough, does it mean अच्छा उतना आपको पावर है ना, चैंटिंग से नहीं आएगा, तो इसलिए ना थोड़ा ये डेमीगॉड का पूजा कर लो, मतलब is that what our acharyas have told us? अगर चैंटिंग attentive नहीं है तो then the only solution that the acharyas have given is try to do whatever is necessary to make your chanting attentive.
Okay.
So therefore already we are struggling with weak faith, but if we do what they say, अगर आपका तो चैंटिंग तो वैसे भी ढीला है तो ये करने में क्या है, आप तो पूर्ण रूप से समर्पित तो नहीं है. सही है, पूर्ण रूप से समर्पित नहीं हो, पर अभी समर्पण करने का प्रयास तो कर रहा हूं, आप तो किसी और को समर्पण करने के लिए बोल रहे हूं, वो सही है क्या? Is that right?
Okay.
So that we should understand. Already my faith is weak, I cannot allow it to become impure. At least with a weak faith, it's a good seed. I can keep watering it. Shravana kirtana jale kare shechan. With with little more Shravan, with little more Kirtan, with good association, I will have to try to protect the purity of that faith and gradually raise its strength, rather than trying to make it impure through other practices like that.
Fine.
That's my understanding.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Prabhuji, I had one more. Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, as a continuation to what you answered, you said you talked about mature guidance, right? So mature guidance based on what Rup Goswami, what the acharyas have told us.
Yeah,
so now when we have, I'm talking about practical terms, we have conflicts within families, or so whatever needs to be done to resolve the conflict within a family, like what is mature guidance in a way, like if, according to what the acharyas have said, if it is going to be like intensify your bhakti more and everything will be, or if we are we, is it okay to look into factors that okay there may be a personality disorder, or whatever health issue, whatever you had spoken once about Vrachandri Mataji had asked, and you had answered about the difference between going to an astrologer and going to a doctor, as a part of the effort of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, because as guidance, probably many times what we get is do not go to outside people for help. Try to take help within the devotee circle. So for a practical problem like this, yeah.
Well, I don't know, Mataji. I mean, it's not, you cannot give such blanket answers. Well, if you really have a health issue, you should go to a specialist. And if, for a particular specialty, let's say, I don't know, maybe there are devotee doctors in all specialty. Maybe maybe for some specialty, there is no devotee doctor. That does not mean you don't treat that at all. So if there are devotee doctors, well and good. If there are no devotee doctors, you take help from non-devotee doctors. That does not really, I mean, nowhere. I mean, you can see from Prabhupada's practical life also. So Prabhupada says, go to a doctor. Prabhupada does not say, go to a devotee doctor. If you have some health issues, go to a doctor. You can, I mean, that is never a problem. If there is no specialist available in that particular field, you can always go. But so if that is about health problems, but there could be other issues. Like for example, guhyamakyati prichati. This is neither a physical need. It's more of an emotional need that can be fulfilled by devotees. If there is an emotional need, and if one is looking for a good friend to confide in, a good friend to share their heart, and seek some empathizing words, devotees can fill that part. Dadati pratigranati, devotees can fill that part. Bhungte bojete, devotees can fill that part. So these are the aspects devotees can fill. But there are certain other practical aspects which devotees may not be able to fill. So definitely one can go outside. I mean, I don't see any contradiction here with respect to the Shastric teachings for this. Is that relevant, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, I'll have to think about it, but yes, I'll get back.
Hare Krishna. Okay, anything else? Any other?
Haribol.
Brajsundari Mataji?
Haribol, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, as you said about surrender, that surrender means love. So I was just thinking that isn't it that the surrender will manifest in our life according to the love that we are developing or cultivating
Correct.
Through devotional service. So,
Correct.
will this be a natural process, or a sadhaka has to make some endeavor on his own also? Means, is it expected from us that we do certain things, like you give up this, you give up that? So will it not happen naturally as our love strengthens, our faith strengthens?
Well,
Will that surrender not manifest automatically, or we have to actually put efforts, and will that be artificial on our part?
well, it's just like any other material relationship, Mataji. You have some interest in some person in whom you want, with whom you may want to establish an affectionate relationship. So will it organically happen? Well, may not. You have to do something, because if you have some preliminary love and you want to nurture it further, then there are certain activities which need to be done. That is true even with the ordinary mundane relationships. Nothing happens automatically. Any relationship sustains through endeavors, solid endeavors. If we want to maintain an affectionate bonding with anyone, it includes solid endeavors. So it's true with Krishna also. So to the extent that we and we don't see it as, in one sense, but we can the endeavor can be proportionate to the extent that we are convinced that we want to establish a relationship with Krishna. So when that conviction is weak, the endeavor becomes weak. But when slowly, in good association, when the conviction becomes strong, the endeavor will also become strong. And because the conviction is also strong, that proportionate increase in that endeavor is not felt as a real burden like that. Is that relevant, Mataji?
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji. Means I was just thinking that taking a example of some mundane relationship, suppose. Sometimes if you are investing in some relationship and you make sacrifices for that particular relationship, of course with Krishna it's all on a different level.
Yeah.
But if it is, what do I say, if that relationship is still not, or my affection is still not on that level, and if I make sacrifices, it could be it can create disturbance in my own mind if I have not naturally reached that stage.
Yeah,
Same,
that is
same
true.
thing applies.
Yeah, that is why you cannot force people, actually. We have to, that is why Prabhupada always says, fan their spark of voluntary spirit. So that is the key, because bhakti is absolutely voluntary. So you have to fan the spark of voluntary spirit, that people feel attracted and people want to sacrifice. You can't push them. I mean, to some extent you can, but you can't. It's not very sustainable. You can't keep running the show with the pushing business. That does not work like that. We have to fan, as Prabhupada says, fan the spark of voluntary spirit, like that. Is that?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. It is, yeah, one last discussion, then we will end. Yes, Mataji.
Is it okay?
Yeah, okay, Mataji.
It's continuation of Shamli's question, actually. Prabhuji, for example, any relationship problem, or any sort of problem, you go to one type of senior devotees, they'll say, chant more attentively. All the solution lies in chanting. Then you go to another type of senior devotees, they'll say, yes, chanting is very important, but along with that, whatever needs to be done externally, you can also do that. So sometimes you can guide on this, because this aspect, see, let me be honest, if there's a grasta problem in someone's life, definitely we can tell them chanting is the ultimate solution to everything. But then that particular situation, chanting is not helping them. They need to have little guidance from someone, whomever it may be. It may be a senior devotee, it may be a like a person who can tell them to how to communicate better with each other. Like, you are just lacking on communication. So sometimes I feel that yes, 100% spiritual life is the only solution. Krishna consciousness is the ultimate solution to everything. But sometimes these external skills, like how to communication skills between husband and wife, our communication whenever we have relationship problem anywhere, whether it is office or house or anywhere, then these skills they help. And one of, like,
yeah, with Krishna in the center, definitely, Mataji, we can definitely emphasize that, like we discussed the other day, there are primary limbs of bhakti and secondary limbs of bhakti. So anything can be a secondary limb of bhakti. If any activity when performed in order to protect our own devotional service or other people's devotional service, with that mood, when that activity is performed, that is also a secondary limb of devotional service. But that intent should be very clear. So with that, like say for example, when we are sitting with devotees and chanting, some devotees use ear plugs to plug their ears so that they can chant little more attentively. So even though plugging their ears is not really the 65th limb of devotional service that Rupa Goswami gives, or it is not within the 64 limbs, but definitely if that is plugging the ear is just a very mundane activity. But if that is performed so that I can chant attentively, that using that plug becomes a spiritual object, and that plugging that ears becomes an activity of devotional service. So if one learns certain skills by with devotees nicely, so that we don't have to offend them, and so that our devotional life can progress nicely. With that mood, when it is done, that is devotional service. But the only danger is we should not get completely carried away by it. Like say for example, someone learns non-violent communication, let's say, in order to properly deal with devotees. So it's not that he becomes a pakka expert in non-violent communication, and chanting and hearing Bhagavatam, everything becomes secondary. It should not become like that. That has a purpose. It is utilized for that purpose. But ultimately, we may learn certain skills here and there, but that should not supersede the primary activity. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Wonderful.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you all very much for your patient listening and participation. So today we could see the explanation of Sarvadharman Parityajya, the explanation given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So next week there is no Bhakti Rasam Sindhu discussion, because there is North Zone RCM. So generally one Thursday every month we don't have. So that would be next Thursday. There is North Zone RCM meeting. So we will subsequently be meeting the week after that. We will continue with a very, very important topic. I will at least give I will just tell the topic, because just to create that appetite for you, and then I will let you go. So the topic is, we have discussed so much. Rupa Goswami has told no, Varnashram is not a limb of bhakti, we need not practice Varnashram and all that. But then how do we understand? Srila Prabhupada did say that 50% of his mission is establishing Varnashrama. How do we understand this? If Rupa Goswami has clearly told it is not a limb of bhakti, one Vaidhi sadhaka need not perform, then how do we understand this point? So this is a very important principle. So maybe the additional week is there, so that we can churn and ruminate on the subject matter and think about it, so that we can see how we understand this point, this very important thing, the 50% incomplete job of Srila Prabhupada. How do we understand this point? So we will try to discuss this theme when we meet next Thursday. So thank you all very much, and we will meet next week. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.